Hi guys, I've got some more fun things while we're in Passover week. I know the further along we get in my videos, the more complicated things might be feeling. Trust me, they are for me too. It's just so much to keep in mind. I keep telling myself to sit down and make a complete timeline of everything, but it feels like such a monumental task. Plus, every time I even try to get started, I end up in research again and keep finding new things that I want to add as well. Perhaps if I try to break things into smaller pieces and make some short videos with some of my notes, it will feel easier. Before I get started, one thing a friend just pointed out is that I made a goof on the date on my pick of the Schumann resonance anomaly. It happened just last year in 2023, and not in 2013, like I had typed out onto my slide for my past videos. I have fixed it for this video, so if you took a screenshot or notes from my past videos, that crazy Schumann resonance anomaly happened in 2023. If you haven't seen my last videos, you'll have to backtrack to catch up. Last time I talked about PHI Day a little. It was 6/18 of 2023, last year, and the day of the Schumann resonance anomaly. They call June 18th PHI Day because the number phi is 1.618, and it is God's divine number, the golden ratio or golden proportion, and is encoded in just about everything, even in our DNA. Scientists believe it is the key to the universe. Just hang with me because this video is not going to be a complicated math or physics lesson. I'm not that smart. About as far as my math skills go is that I used to live with a total math genius, a human calculator, someone who was designing the first computer chips with a slide rule. Yeah, the days when a handheld calculator wasn't even conceived of. And every year on March 14th, 314, which is the number for pi, he would say, "Let's go get a piece of pie. They will be on sale because today is Pi Day." So funny that the menorah sign happened on 3/13, the very day before Pi Day. I think I'll have to do an extremely fast recap of a few previous videos before launching into what I'll be showing today, because it's what led me into all this. So, I've been talking about PHI Day, which is 6/18, and what happened last year on 6/18, of the Schumann resonance anomaly and the implosion of the Titan, and thinking about the event horizon. If you want to know more about an event horizon, you can read about it on the net and in Wikipedia and places. Again, it's a lot of science that I won't go into. I was showing this pic in a recent video, but didn't really talk about it because my research isn't about quantum physics or maybe what those guys at CERN might be up to. But this number phi with 100% accuracy appears in black hole physics. And this article here is just talking about it and showing some equations. So maybe people can understand the profound importance of God's divine number as perhaps holding the secrets to the universe and life itself. So while contemplating all this, and this picture that I showed last time, and how there is an encoding of God's divine proportions in certain events that have happened, as well as the Fibonacci sequence, which is found in all of creation. like the blood moon eclipsing Uranus, also called heaven, exactly 333 days before the attack on Israel. And it was 222 days before the PHI of the seven thunders, and 111 days from the seven thunders to the day Israel was attacked. And I also talked about the totally impossible Schumann resonance anomaly that happened on Phi Day, or the Seven Thunders Day, which was also the day of the complete implosion of the Titan in the darkest, most silent, deepest depths of the sea. And it had also been 111 years since the Titanic was buried. I also talked about this number 1600 that John gives us when the moon came out of the temple filled with wrath, the last thing John wrote at the end of chapter 14 of Revelation. And it was also the last thing that happened before the formation of the menorah sign in the heavens, from the first verse of chapter 15. I've also talked about this war in heaven that's been going on for a while. And one of the key dates is this day of May 8th through the 9th, when Israel was partying in the streets to celebrate their 71st birthday. It was one of the major signs of the battle between the sun and the moon, Israel versus Christ and God. The blood moon eclipsing Uranus, or heaven, was a big deal. The longest blood moon in 33 years, and 333 days later, Israel was attacked. And I talked about what happened on these dates when the same thing happened 84 years prior, in 1938 and 1939. As you can see from this pic I was posting, the sun during Israel's 71st birthday celebration was in the same place as the moon was during that blood moon, and also around the same place in the heavens that the sun was during the resurrection. And Israel was attacked on the same star date of Jesus' birthday too, meaning that the sun was in the same spot in the heavens on God's clock on both of those dates. And then on the 8th day later after the attack, on October 14th, was the wedding ring eclipse, which was also the exact matching star date of Jesus' circumcision day, when he first entered the temple in Jerusalem, and Anna, Uranus, or heaven, the widow, was there as well. So I was thinking about the seven thunders and what they might have said to John. It's just something I think about a lot. If people aren't familiar with all this, it is in Revelation chapter 10, when John says that the mighty angel cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roareth, which just reminds me of the Turkey earthquakes and the seventh seal that I'll show in Stellarium in a few minutes, which happened 133 days before the seven thunders, on February 6th last year. The seven thunders were on June 18th last year. John writes that the seven thunders uttered their voices, but when he was about to write, he heard a voice from heaven saying unto him, Seal up those things which the seven thunders uttered, and write them not. That was 111 days before the attack on Israel. And that is why I refer to them as the silent thunders, because we don't know what they said to John. And I was thinking about the PHI numbers of that day of the seven thunders and being the secrets to the universe. And what is it? It is the idea of the resurrection itself and defeating death and becoming immortal with God and through Jesus Christ. It is like the event horizon where time no longer exists. Knowing that we are in a sort of holding pattern right now in Revelation 16, since all 7 of the vials of wrath were filled during the 40 days leading up to April 8th eclipse, and even that final vial of wrath being filled during the eclipse, which was Mars representing war. And knowing that John wrote his gospel while he wrote the book of Revelation, that fact has become very obvious to me now. In Revelation chapter 16, Jesus reveals himself at the 6th vial, and the 7th vial is when it's total destruction. And it says that great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And as I said before, I have no idea if all 7 vials will be poured out at once or what exactly is about to happen. But I went back to John's Gospel to see what he had to say at the end of chapter 16. And he writes that Jesus said, of course it is verse 33, Jesus' numbers again. Jesus says, these things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So I looked to see what is the day count from the 7 thunders when John was told not to write what they said, and how many days to the resurrection. 314 days. That's the number for pi, another one of God's divine numbers. It is what they call an irrational number, which means that its exact value is inherently unknowable. And for me, whatever anyone else thinks about all this, I feel I know what the 7 thunders told John. He is risen. So of course I jumped on Stellarium to see what was going on in the heavens that day of the 7 thunders on PHI Day, when the Titan imploded on the way to the grave. 6/18 of 2023. And you know what? I decided to set my vantage point from Reedsport, where I believe John was given the reed to measure the worshippers in the temple, when the wedding ring eclipse happened at the start of the very next chapter, 111 days after the 7 thunders. And on June 18th of 2023, this is what I saw. From Reedsport, the sun and the moon were rising exactly together. Again with the sun versus the moon, on the day of the 7 thunders. How often do you think this happens, with the sun and the moon rising together? And we also have Mercury the messenger right there looking on. And I could have changed my timestamp by a minute or maybe 2, but I like this time that I have set here, 5:45 and 6 seconds a.m. Basically, the moon and the sun are sitting exactly on the horizon at this point, side by side. And Strong's number G5456, which matches my timestamp, means the sound of uttered words. And if you are confused about the location, this is the vantage point where the wedding ring eclipse first touched the U.S. at Reedsport on the 8th day after Israel was attacked, where John was given the reed in the first words of the next chapter. Oh, I'm sure everyone thinks I'm nuts, but let's look at stellarium for those Turkey earthquakes. And I've set my stellarium for Gaziantep, Turkey. Well, first, let's look at the Wikipedia about these record-breaking quakes that started on February 6th of 2023 and forming a gigantic 7. Just the basics. The first quake hit at 4:17 a.m., a magnitude of 7.8 just northwest of Gaziantep, which I set my stellarium for. It was followed by a second 7.7 magnitude quake at 1:24 in the afternoon. There were tens of thousands of fatalities. One of the strongest quakes ever recorded in the Levant, with more than 30,000 aftershocks in the 3 months that followed. Let's look at stellarium. I've split this screen so I can show what's happening in the east on the left side and what's happening in the west on the right side. The left is sunrise in the east at 7:30 a.m. On the right side is 30 minutes later, as the moon is going down in the west, right in the jaws of Leo the lion. And thinking about these 30 minutes as Turkey is being rocked like never before, and near where the 7 churches of Revelation are, which, when I'm equating this whole event with the opening of the 7th seal, then this 30-minute difference between the sun rising and the moon going down, this could perhaps be the 30 minutes that John spoke of. Although mostly I think of these 30 minutes that heaven went silent as what would naturally happen in heaven when that final 7th seal was opened, because it represents that the final decision has been made to call an end to everything. That's the opening verses to chapter 8. And that's when the 7 angels which stood before God were given the 7 trumpets. John writes that another angel came and stood at the altar and offered prayers of all the saints. He writes that the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. So, if you've been watching and understanding my videos, I'm sure you know what I did next. I wanted to know which angel exactly was in the waters of Aquarius at this time, because that's exactly what John is saying here. And here it is. It is Venus. On the very day of all these massive quakes, passing through the waters of Aquarius. I've still got stellarium set to Gaziantep, Turkey, so you can see the timestamps. These were the 2 moments of the 7.8 and 7.7 quakes, and that's Venus that I've got targeted there. I'll back out here so you can see that Venus and the altar are very much lit by the sun or clothed in pure white at this time, because the sun is right there in Capricorn. I've always considered Venus as representing the church or bride in my stories. And to go back to the morning horizon that day in Turkey, I'm adding this insert of the Turkey earthquakes here, as we look again at the sun rising on the morning of the earthquakes, and the moon going down in the jaws of the Lion of Judah only 30 minutes later. The sun would of course represent Christ as the light of the world, and the moon that was going down in the jaws of Leo in my stories, the moon always represents Israel, forever waxing and waning with God throughout history, with no light of its own, but only a reflection of the light, and at times in total darkness, and at times actually attempting to eclipse the sun itself. And this day on the Hebrew calendar was also the New Year or Festival of the Trees in 2023. It always reminds me of one of the last things Jesus said at the Olivet Discourse in the Gospel of Luke in a parable. Behold the fig tree and all the trees. So I want to show you just one more picture insert here for comparison, and then I'll let you get back to your Passover, and I'll get back to my studies this week, and I'll keep working on attempting some sort of organized timeline. In the center here, I've added a clip from the vantage point of Jerusalem, of Nisan 9 of 30 AD. Some will say that this date of April 1st was actually Nisan 10, the morning of the triumphal entry. And I'm not really going to argue about it. From all my studies of stellarium, I'm okay either way. This insert that you are looking at is either 7 a.m. of Nisan 9, which was the anointing of our King at Bethany, or it is 7 a.m. of Nisan 10, the day of the triumphal entry into Jerusalem. As you can see, the moon is in the same spot as all those Turkey earthquakes of last year, right in the jaws of Leo, as if the Lion of Judah is about to take a big bite out of Israel. Personally, I feel it is a pretty glaring sign in the heavens. But I think what I mostly wanted to show you today was all about the day of the seven thunders on PHI Day and God's divine number of the universe, and its direct connection to Pi, God's other unknowable number, 314 days to Resurrection Day. And I think I know what those seven thunders had to say to John just before they handed him the little book and told him to go prophesy again. I think they wanted to tell him that he is risen. Let's all raise him up. And have a beautiful, blessed week in your studies with the Lord. Peace out.